Backslash Security is an Israeli application security company built for the era of vibe coding. They've recently raised a $19 million Series A led by Compass VC and have publicly stated they're going to use this money for R&D and scaling their go-to-market across the US and European operations. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly what I would do if I was going to help them grow their company and maximize the return for their investors. I'm Halen Yules, the founder of ScaleMate. We've helped over 50 B2B SaaS companies 10x their sales pipeline with our GTM engineering services. Our customers include the likes of Coworker AI, an agentic AI startup. Founders are all ex-Uber leadership and have raised over $16 million. We helped them close $200,000 in net new business in the first 60 days. Plarion, an AI cybersecurity startup whose founder sold his last business for $70 million to Trend Micro back in 2019. In the first 30 days of working with us, we booked them 11 meetings. They closed $20,000 in net new ARR and opened up multiple six-figure opportunities through a data center partnership. CrediLink AI, a fintech startup who raised an $8.5 million Series A. We booked over 70 meetings for them across 4 different geographies. Now let's get into the video. As we know, there has been an explosion in AI coding tools with the likes of Cursor, Claude Code, and Windsurf. Developers are using these tools to ship code faster than ever before. But security? Well, it's kind of been an afterthought. Backslash Security is capitalizing on this massive market shift towards AI coding and promises to help secure its future. So what does Backslash Security actually do? Well, their platform promises visibility into AI inventory, LLMs, MCPs, and plugins to identify any risks in the developer's workflow. They can give insight into user behavior and whether they are using approved models, just as an example. They provide insight into overly permissive MCPs and even provide a fully traceable audit log for incident response and forensic investigation. Now, they have quite an impressive customer list. They've landed companies like Monday.com, SentinelOne, Chipotle, and PandaDoc. Now, I wanted to get into the mindset of the founders and the exec team. And another very interesting insight that shows the future thinking of Backslash Security is that they just added former CyberArk CRO Ron Zorin to their board. Now, he will obviously add significant value to their GTM and have strong positions as they move into this new phase of growth on the partner and the channel ecosystem, given his experience at CyberArk. But I think they brought him on also to assist with the product roadmap and vision, specifically around the importance of privileged account management and how this is becoming a critical security gap that needs to be addressed in this new world of agentic development workflows. Now let's jump into their ICP. Who do these guys actually sell to? Well, firstly, let's just think about it logically. Companies need to be using AI coding tools. They need to be building with agents, RAG, LLMs, etc. So heavy development shop, using AI in some way, shape, or form. Now, fortunately, pretty much every company at the moment falls into that bucket. So let's take the next step. They're in the security space, obviously businesses that value their data, their security, uptime, etc. So tech companies are going to be great, regulated industries are going to be great, enterprise SaaS, quite broad there. Now, given their current customers, their ICP, I would assume, is probably 100 developers plus across the company. I would assume as well that that is going to drive deal size, deal value, and they seem to focus on more the enterprise customers than, mid-market and SMB. Now, from a contact demographic standpoint, in the security space, obviously CISOs are going to be high value target. VPs of security, head of application security, potentially product security, platform engineering. If we wanted to do a bottoms up approach, so starting from the bottom, gain attention and work your way up to the decision maker, we could go to the AppSec guys, the developers, for more awareness campaigns, which we'll get into in a second. Okay, now the fun part, let's get into some numbers. So I'm going to make a bunch of assumptions here so we can reverse engineer what we believe to be their revenue goal so we can then fill that gap and figure out their go-to-market plan. Now, as we know, they've raised a $19 million Series A. They've raised $27 million in total. Now, companies at this level are expected, depending on their investors, to grow anywhere from 100 to 200% annually. Now, Backslash has not published a public revenue target. So I'm going to go with the more conservative number here and say they need to double their business or 100% growth target in the next 12 months. Now, again, they don't have public revenue numbers, so this is an assumption, but given their size of like 40 to 50 employees on LinkedIn and given the amount that they've raised, I'm going to guess they're at about $5 million in ARR right now, which would mean at 100% growth rate, they've got a $5 million gap. Now, not all of this is going to be filled by our go-to-market plan or outbound in general. So let's assume for argument's sake that 50% of that number or $2.5 million gap is going to be filled by us. So now that we have a North Star revenue target, we're able to reverse engineer their sales goal into actual funnel metrics. Now I'm going to use LinkedIn as their primary channel. We would also be looking to factor in an email funnel as well. So $2.5 million revenue target over the next 12 months. Given their ICP and given their current case studies that are listed on their website, typically the more enterprise customers, I've estimated their average contract value to be $80,000. This actually could be higher, but again, it is an assumption that we're working with. And they seem to be doing well. They've got a lot of referenceable big names. So I've also estimated a 20% close rate on cold outbound. So this funnel shows two separate workflows. One is a connection request workflow. You send a connection, the person accepts, you send them a message, a follow-up, etc. The other one is an in-mail workflow. Now that is an open profile. An open profile on LinkedIn is someone who has changed the setting to I'm looking for a job so recruiters can see you. A lot of the time people forget to turn that off. So an in-mail workflow allows you to send a message without a connection request and you actually land in the LinkedIn inbox. It's a little GTM hack. That's the second workflow. The benefit there is anyone with an open profile, you do not have to wait until they accept a connection request. It increases your volume significantly. So given the nature of their business, they're targeting security folks. I've put the estimated acceptance rate at about 25%. The reply rate, 25%, which is quite high. Might actually be higher than that. The market timing that they have is great for this. I think they're going to get really, really good replies, as well as the positive reply rate at 20%. Again, high. I think the market timing, the vision, the messaging on their website is fantastic. Plus the logos, the amount of evidence that we can put into these messages would be great to give a higher reply rate and positive reply rate. And then meeting rate, 0.6. I do actually think we could get higher than that. Again, I like to be conservative in these numbers to not overpromise, underpromise, overdeliver. That's the way to do it. And those metrics go into the in-mail workflow as well. What this calculator actually says, over the next 12 months, we would need to book 182 meetings. Now, 15% of those people may not show up, rescheduling, other commitments, etc. It happens. So 155 meetings total at a 20% close rate would equal 31 new customers, which would get them to the $2.5 million revenue gap that we're looking to close. Now, that means they're going to need 14 LinkedIn accounts sending at almost full capacity for the entire year to book that many meetings and close that much revenue. Now let's talk about the actual strategies that I would use here in order to reach these numbers and how we'd go about building messaging. So as we know, scraping ICP lists and kind of hoping for the best just doesn't work these days. Unfortunately, those days are over. So we need to be very strategic in how we target these people. First, I would sit down with the team and come up with a signals strategy to determine what are the best external signals that we can use to predict who might be looking around for a solution like Backslash Security. Next, I would want to collect and ingest all of their sales, marketing materials, their website, investor decks, anything that they can provide us, successful campaigns in the past, to learn from what they've already done and where they've already had success. Then, given the signals that I'm about to go through, we would cross-reference this data set and this corpus of knowledge against each intent signal to drive a wedge in our messaging in order to get attention. Typically at the beginning, we're in sort of learning phase, so I would like to A/B test two types of messaging to see how their ICP responds. The first is a very direct approach. It's quite salesy, right? So very direct, very to the point. Second is a relationship-driven approach, more of a conversation, opening up a conversation. There'll be some back and forth and interaction. We can learn over the first 1,000-ish contacts that go through that funnel to see what the most successful approach is moving forward. Now for the signals. First, I would look to target their direct competitors' audiences. And I'd actually want to start here with their exact match competitors. And a little bit of research, Endor Labs, Apiro, they're two very, very comparable competitors at similar stages. Endor Labs has 19,000 followers on LinkedIn on their company page. Apiro has 12,000 followers. Now those numbers are quite small, 19 and 12K, but that's given. They're a startup, so it's expected. Someone who is following Endor Labs or Apiro, who is also part of Backslash Security's ICP, this is a very strong, very high quality intent signal. They could be using those providers. They could be happy. They could be unhappy. They could be churned, or they could be in the market right now for a solution. The second intent signal I would like to use is going after the very well-known app security vendors with a larger audience, a larger following. This would include companies like Sneak and Checkmarx. Now, Sneak has 117,000 followers. Checkmarx has 129,000 followers on LinkedIn. These are very brand recognizable. They've got strong brand equity. So getting a message that mentions these is a very good way to get attention. These vendors aren't an exact match competitor, but the buyers of these systems are almost certainly the same buyers that Backslash is looking for. And it allows us with our message to drive a direct wedge between what they offer versus what Backslash offers. Now, the third signal I'd be looking to use is more of an ecosystem play. Now, Backslash are very fortunate that their customer base is probably following the major AI coding tools like Cursor or Claude Code or Anthropic in this case. They should be using them as well. So Cursor has 249,000 followers and Anthropic has 4 million followers. Now, Anthropic's a little bit different. It's a wider use case. Of course, they have different products, but a whole bunch of those folks who also fit the ICP criteria of Backslash are probably using Claude Code. Now, the trick with this one is how you use the signal and what message you send to the recipients. There are so many nuances here to ensure you maintain a high level of positive responses. You can easily trip yourself up. Now, the final signal I would strongly consider using, a lot of enterprise companies have publicly available GitHub repos, and you can get a lot of information from these that can be used in messaging specifically for the bottoms up approach. I would reserve this for their target account list, this strategy for their target account list. You can get information like the latest contributors to these repos and even whether they're using Cursor or Claude. The trick here is being able to use the information that we find to generate a hyper relevant message to send to the right people, potentially highlighting some common risks from our findings as just an example. Across all 4 of these campaigns, I would want to multi-thread. So starting from the top down, the CISO down to sort of director or head level, and then also the developers, the software engineers to the manager level. They would probably be split into 2 different cohorts because they're 2 very, very different buying personas. Now, this signals mapping process is just the first step to build out their data set and fill the gaps in a CRM where they're required. We would launch these campaigns relatively quickly and use the learnings to iterate on messaging and build out a more predictable pipeline, not based on assumptions, but their actual conversions. Once we've dialed in the repeatable model, we would then plug in our continuous learning engine that essentially takes every meeting booked, every positive reply, and begins to auto-generate responses so that the efficiency of replying to their leads improves dramatically over time. The beauty of this process is these workflows are not run by an army of SDRs like they would have been back in the day, but by one dedicated person to manage one channel. So that's one person for LinkedIn and one person for email. This is what the GTM engine of the future looks like, custom built based on your business. The fundamentals are the same, but the tactics change depending on our customer. If you'd like to learn more about how we can build this for you, I will put a link in the description and you can book a call with our team.